Our road to success with solar cooking is long and bumpy, but I think we have arrived, and here's how we got there. I bought my SunOven early in the life of the SunOven brand, but my early attempts were not a total success. I did have some success. I made herbal salves very effectively, and I used it as a dryer effectively. I grow lots of herbs for food and medicine, and it worked well for that. I found that if instead of latching it, you lay the glass door down on top of the lock, it vents just enough to achieve a good temperature to drive out the moisture without cooking the herbs. We live a little bit below 34 degrees north in the U.S. There are plenty of sunny days here, so we certainly should have been able to succeed at solar cooking. But try as I might, I never could get over 300, usually not over 200. Everyone else just adores the SunOven and achieves temperatures of 350 or so why not me? Eventually, I got frustrated and set it aside for later, folded it up, and put it away in an outbuilding. A few months ago, we dug it out and resumed our efforts, and I figured that what was going on had been my lack of expertise. So we upped our game, trying to create a pedestal that could position it in absolutely full sun where it could rotate easily. And of course, after this length of time, some repairs were needed. Some of the wood is overly porous and was no longer holding the screws tightly. And in places, the gasket had become wavery and was not making a good seal. So my husband replaced the worst piece of wood and reinforced other areas so that the hinges would stay tightly in position. At first, we thought we would need a replacement gasket, but close examination shows it's still soft and pliable and ought to be capable of making a seal. In addition to thinking that perhaps our orientation had been inadequate previously, I soon discovered from my researches that my choices of cookware had been completely inappropriate. In my defense, the manual did say you can use any pots you have, and what I had and favored at the time was entirely heavy cast iron or cast iron covered with enamel. It also said in the manual that lightweight black cookware and glass was superior, but I emphasized the other part of the instructions. That was well before the internet was the resource it is now. So it took me about 5 minutes in modern times to realize that I needed to change cooking vessels. What I had on hand to experiment with was mason jars and recycled jars, so I began doing so. And also doing a little online shopping looking for black cookware. Unfortunately, I still got just about the same results. There was a little bit of improvement, but I was not getting hot enough oven temperatures in the SunOven. And I knew that something wasn't right because everybody loves this product. I'm the only one who wasn't getting adequate temperatures. So my husband took a really close look at it and discovered what was probably wrong. This picture you're seeing now is not how the oven was when we received it and tried to use it all these years.
You can see in this picture that the arrows are pointing to 2 tiny set screws, Allen style, that hold the glass to the hinge. What I found was in the other position, they were on the bottom of the glass surface, so they hit the screw heads that you'll see when it's opened, and there wasn't room for both the set screws on the hinge and the screws that hold the bracket to the frame. There we go. We had to swap it around so that the set screws were up, and then it lowered itself enough to make good contact with the seal on the hinge side. These pictures are representing what I have done to correct the situation. The 2 screws that you see are what you take out to move that bracket, then the door is free, and I just swapped the faces of the door and the direction of the door top to bottom so that it was as you see it now. As we said at the aircraft plant, this is probably was made Friday after lunch, and it happens all the time. The way you see it now, the smooth side of the glass hinge bracket is on top of the screws that hold the bracket in place. This is the critical distance that we needed to make it rest on the seal correctly.
And I am sure that if we had contacted the company at the time, they would have worked us through it because it's a wonderful company. But we didn't. That's our negligence, and it wasn't as easy to do then. So the big test, is it now going to get hot enough to cook? And the answer, joyfully, is yes. That does seem to have been the problem. Here is our lentil and rice curry boiling. And it cooked all the way through in 4 hours, was absolutely delicious, just as solar cooked foods are supposed to be. So now emboldened, I'm moving on. Looking around at what was available, I decided to paint things I already had with high heat black spray paint. This is a very lightweight stainless steel mixing bowl from a nesting set. This was a Farberware saucepan, stainless steel and considerably heavier, and it has lost its handle. Another lightweight steel bowl. This one has some rust on both sides, so we'll paint it on both sides and use it where a lid or a saucer is needed. We're painting the pickle jar too, except for leaving a little viewing window at the top above the curve so that we can see the condition of the food. I do have glass lids that fit the pots fairly well, and the pickle jar will use its own lid. So let's see how they compare performance-wise. And since things are going so well now, we decided to give our old bedraggled hardware a little love and clean it up, and Jack is straightening one bracket that was somewhat askew. Here's a view of how much the screws on the hinges actually stick up above the surface of the hinges, and this was the amount by which we weren't getting a tight closure, and no wonder. So here it is with the hinges cleaned up and straightened and installed with new screws, and that looks nice. Well, you know how it goes when you're excited about doing something. In this case, naturally, it absolutely poured most of the next day. But it did stop pouring in the afternoon and lightened up, though it remained with cloud cover all afternoon. Even with the cloud cover, the oven got to 140 degrees, and I succeeded in making herbal tea sweetened with stevia. I use stevia straight from the garden, and if you've done that, you know that it doesn't release its sweetness instantly. It needs a good exposure to hot water. So I was very pleased that it did succeed in sweetening the tea. The following day was partly cloudy, with thunderstorms expected in the afternoon. So, starting the night before, I pre-soaked some black-eyed peas and popped up first thing in the morning to add some rice and spices to them, bring them to a boil, and try haybox cooking. As of this trial, here are the weather conditions, and it's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit outside. So you can see I've got some bright light, but lots of cloud cover, and it comes and goes. The box is holding at about 75 degrees Celsius, which is 167 Fahrenheit. And then when the sun comes out, you can watch it rising in real time. This film is not very good, but if the sun stays out any length of time, it actually reaches 92 C, which is the same as over 197 Fahrenheit. At the moment of this filming, I only have this product thermometer, so I took it out after this because the dial portion of the mechanism really isn't designed to withstand high heat. When I reached in to remove the thermometer, it and both jars felt really hot. At this temperature, I began to fear for the well-being of the towel, so I reached in and took it out, thinking we were achieving hot enough temperatures to continue slow cooking the meal and the tea. And shortly thereafter, both liquids came to a boil. The intermittent sun lasted longer than I had dared hope it would that day, and the tea was certainly done, so I removed it, whipped up a mini batch of scones, and dared to give them a try. They did bake, though they didn't brown very well, but they were delicious. The following day was really mostly cloudy, but there was quite a lot of blue sky, so I dared to bake some bread. It took quite a while, but it actually worked really well and was totally delicious. It made wonderful bread and butter and also tomato sandwiches with fresh tomatoes from the garden. The first truly sunny day, I logged the temperature every 15 minutes. I had a cup of coffee making and a quart of tea making at the same time. This log reads from bottom to top, where I started at 10 a.m. when the sun first reaches the correct position, and took out my coffee and drank it at 11. I did not preheat the oven. These temperatures were achieved starting at normal air temperature with both jars of liquid already in the oven. When I took it out, the coffee was hot and delicious, and I drank it. As noon approached on the same day, even though we'd been opening and shutting the oven quite a lot, it was over 225, so we popped in a pan of lasagna, and 45 minutes later, the cheese is melted and it's bubbling. Since I'm using a cast iron pan here, we did preheat the pan on a gas flame so it wouldn't cool down the oven too much. We lost track of time and ended up leaving it about 2.5 hours, but it turned out to be absolutely magnificent. So I think we got this. Our SunOven is cooking, but we think it can cook even better, and there's good news. This is an old oven, so the wood, the hardware, and the gasket have all gone a little bit downhill with age. We've been in touch with the SunOven company and found out that we can get replacement parts for those things, and we've ordered them, and they are on the way. In addition, SunOven has an upgrade kit which brings older SunOvens up to the standard of an all-American SunOven. It includes a thicker door, a different kind of prop to level with, a sun sighting adjuster, and some other little refinements, and it will fit our oven. So we have ordered one, and we'll try to make a video about the upgrade.